Hello and welcome to the conversation. As always, you are listening to Honest Faith Conversations, and I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias, and today we're talking about Happy Feet.
Yes, as always, welcome, and here is a brief summary of the movie, because I know that some of you may not have seen it since the year that it came out.
Real quick, I also want to mention that this is actually a listener request. So if you are listening and you have an idea of what you want us to talk about, go ahead and get in touch with us through either email or social media, and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, so if you have not seen the movie since 2006, and if you have also not seen the movie, I don't need to give you a spoiler alert because it's been out since 2006. So
yeah.
It's been 11 years, people.
If you haven't seen it, you're not going to see it.
Yeah. Anyway, here is the synopsis. Emperor penguins are born to sing, all except young Mumble, who was born to dance. Tap dance. Such un-penguin-like behavior eventually gets Mumble kicked out of the Emperor land and into the big, cold world. Joined by his Adelaide amigos and an all-knowing rockhopper penguin named Loveless, Mumble embarks on an epic journey and ultimately proves that by being true to yourself, you can make all the difference in the world. Yes, I did just read that off of the back of the DVD case. I think instead of a spoiler alert this week, we need to give you a opinion alert for this week because we expanded our controversial issues segment to kind of cover the majority of this episode because of this particular movie.
And just because of the time that we're watching it in.
Yes. After this week, this movie seems a lot more apt and...
Definitely.
Kind of speaks a little bit more to what's going on for this particular week in our country. So with that being said, let's move into talking about some of the major points of this movie. I also want to say it is an entertaining movie. It's a fun movie. My only criticism of this movie is that they try to do way too much in this one movie.
They do, yeah.
So that's why there are 4 major points that I think we're going to be touching on that I think the movie touches on. So the very first one is acceptance.
Which is clear.
Yeah.
I mean, from the get-go, we are introduced to Mumble, who, at first you think has a problem with his feet, but it just turns out when he's happy, he just dances instead of sings like the other penguins.
And I think this also came about at the time that, what was that movie? Billy Elliot was becoming popular. It was a Broadway musical. About the kid who just wanted to dance.
Yeah, I know what it's about, but I'm not sure if that's when it came out. But I do remember, the Penguin documentary, came out, and, everybody was, really hyped up about penguins at that time.
Morgan Freeman as the voice.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, people's acceptance of this movie is also an issue, I noticed. That when I went to go find this movie, I went to the library, and I was thinking that I would find it in the kids section. It was not in the kids section. It was in the adult section.
Now, are we talking about adult, or are we talking about just
where anything
rated
that
R
is
movies and that
anything
kind of
that's PG-13 and up is in the adult movies. But what is this rated, by the way? Here we have the DVD case here. We'll just look on the back here. Anyway, this is one of those things that I thought that's really weird. Why is it in the adult section? I can understand with some of the music that's taken, and it's PG, but it's not PG-13.
No.
But
there is some mild peril and some rude humor, though.
Yes, there is mild peril and rude humor, and some of the music that they use is very focused on sex. So, but in the mating kind of way.
So much for having this episode be family friendly.
Sex is not a bad word. That's what we're talking about in this episode. We'll be talking about that too. The next big point is conservation. And I know that this is it's a dead horse, as it were, in new media. Because almost every single kids movie and kids TV show talks about conservation, about environmentalism and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this goes back like even. I mean, this is not a new thing. I mean,
No, I know.
Even like me, even though I was born in the '90s or '80s, I was
Late
born in the
80s.
'80s, late '80s. Most of the cartoons I watched were in the '90s, and like the big one I remember was Captain Planet. And, like,
Yeah.
I loved that show. I can sing you the song right now, but I won't because I don't know about copyright issues. But
He's your hero.
he is my hero,
Yeah.
and I will help him take pollution down to zero.
All right.
But like conservation, like you said, has been like it's nothing new. Even though people like roll their eyes at it and don't think we should do it, like
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about that here in a second.
Yeah.
Once we open up our controversial issues segment, because that's the next segment coming. The next big point I think this movie touches on is religious rigidity. I mean, yeah.
yeah, with the older, if you don't remember, the older penguins when Mumble comes back are like, well, I mean, they're kind of rigid the whole entire time, but they really get like upset when Mumble comes back, and he has this device on the back of him that the scientists put on him to
Well, even
track.
before that, it's when he comes back the first time after his getting lost, and when they were going out to their graduation party.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, that was why they kicked him out in the first place, was because they believed that him being there and him not being able to sing was the reason why the fish were not coming, or were not there, and that they didn't have enough to eat,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this goes on to this. Yeah, we'll come back to this in the controversial issues, because this is a controversial issue. The last big point that I saw in this movie was standing up for what you feel is right. And as you heard on the back of the DVD case, that's what the synopsis people were thinking that this movie's about, is standing up for what is right. And yeah, obviously we have a lot to say on all of these things because of the week that we are doing this podcast in.
What a week it has been.
Yes. So let us open up our controversial issues segment, because that is pretty much a lot of what we have here in this movie. So, yeah, let's start with the being different, with the acceptance. And by the way, the one issue that I have with the filmmakers and the plot writers in this is the whole idea of the egg getting away and this kind of being a birth defect. Can you say birth defect for a being that's born out of an egg, or that comes out of an egg?
Well,
Development defect?
Yeah, I guess. But I don't think, to me, I thought it was more like, it was like alluding to like this may be the cause, or maybe like his dad like kind of pushed him away
Yeah.
because of it, because his dad was feeling guilty that he may have caused this, but I don't think he did.
Well, I mean, this goes hand in hand with, like we were talking about before, the big issue with sexuality, with sexual fluidity, and that's one argument that I never really understood why they needed to make that argument to say that they were born that way. I mean, I think that, like I said before, is that I think that sexuality is fluid, is that, people aren't going to want the same things, and so therefore it does move, but you can't really change it. I can understand the whole idea that you were born that way, so you can't change who you are. And that's very much present in Mumble throughout this movie, saying that, he was born this way, he can't change that. He can't change who he is.
Yeah.
He can't begin to sing correctly, because that's just not who he is.
Well, and he legit can't.
Yeah.
Like, he tries to learn how to sing. He really wants to give it a go and give it his all, but he just can't.
Well, I would say probably that's what his birth defect is that
Not being able to sing is not a birth defect.
it's not a birth defect, but for him, maybe it ruined his vocal cords. That's what happened when the egg got away from, what is his name? Memphis.
His dad.
That winter, yeah. But I mean, the whole idea of being different. This is huge, and I think this is very important for children as well as teenagers. And working with youth, this is primarily my wheelhouse. Is that is especially during the time of adolescence is that trying on different identities and seeing what fits. I mean, you have Eric Erickson talking about this, and you have all these different people who did really significant work in adolescent development, talking about why they deal with the things that they deal with. Is they're trying to figure out who they are and where they fit into society, especially in adolescence. And since we kind of developed this whole idea of adolescence out of the early 1900s, that with the birth of public high schools. By the way, look that up. Very interesting story. That the whole idea of adolescence was never really a thing until early 20th century, which is
like around a little bit after World War II.
No, before that, early 1900s.
Oh, well, I know
after Civil War.
I knew it was an early thing because the word teenager wasn't at all in anybody's vocabulary until that point.
Yeah,
and people just kind of were children and then were adults.
But they had these rites of
period.
passage. They had rites of passage that would move them from childhood into adulthood. And you kind of have that with the graduation thing. You see it here in the movie as well as in real life. Is that high school graduation is now kind of seen as that rite of passage for a teenager from moving from childhood into adulthood, which, in my opinion, I don't think that's enough. And as a longtime youth ministry veteran, I really think that there needs to be more rites of passage in our society. Because that's the point, is they're trying to figure out who they are as adults. And that's what Mumble is trying to do throughout this entire movie, is trying to figure out who he is as an adult. This movie was probably more geared towards teenagers. That's probably why it was in the adult section instead of children. For being an animated feature mixed with some live action, what do they call that? Stop motion or cell shading?
I can't remember what it's called. The same stuff that they used for Polar Express. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's more of a Scanner Darkly kind of thing where they drew over live action footage. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. The point being that that rites of passage should be a big thing in our society. I mean, you see this throughout many of the ancient civilizations. You have, in Jewish culture, you have the bar and bat mitzvahs, where they have this whole ritual. They have this whole thing about a child becoming an adult, at the age of 13, at the age of puberty. Where they kind of transition. Where, in my opinion, there's also should be a second rite of passage when you go through second puberty. By the way, that's a thing. Look it up. When you move from that adolescence into real adulthood.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we as a whole as society, we don't really know how to do adulthood.
No,
or teach our children how to do adult. So
no, we don't. I mean, I see it in. I mean, I can't tell you how many people my age still have no idea how the world works. No, seriously, I'm not just talking about people who live with their parents, because with this in economic times, that's kind of what we've had to do.
Yeah.
But I know several people my age who don't really have to pay their own bills because their parents do it for them. They are still within this weird, still an adolescent bubble.
Yeah.
That they it's hard for them to see the world in a broader spectrum. They're so concerned still with themselves that they can't understand that their part is very minuscule.
One of the official terms for this, by the way, one of my favorite shows of all time is named this as well, Arrested Development.
Yes, definitely.
And I think it partly has to do with our lack of rites of passage as a culture. The Native Americans had this whole thing where they went off on their first hunt alone, where they went off, kind of their whole thing
depending on the
alone.
tribe too.
Yeah, and I mean, in Australia, the Aborigines have the walkabout. You have all these different rites of passage throughout the world, and one of the greatest things that I think I just learned about recently, it was just a few years ago that I learned about this, that some Native American tribes had this rite of passage for warriors when they came back from war, is that this was a whole kind of ritual of cleansing them of that. Was that you're home from war now, you're no longer needed as a warrior, you're needed at home as a father, as a brother, as a friend, and saying that this is your job now, not being a warrior. And I think that in itself should be something that we should be doing for our soldiers when they come back from war.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's, I mean, the problem with PTSD in this transition period is that they feel so alone. They feel so, kind of, they don't know where their place is in society. They feel so different. Bringing it back to what we're talking about, they feel so different and left out from society. And I think this would have been good for Mumble too. Is trying to find his place is helping him to find his place.
Yeah, like instead of like, oh, you don't fit the molds that we have laid out already. Sorry, but you can't be a part of us. Like that's a dangerous area, and all you're going to do is just set people up for heartache.
Yeah, and that's what I think. Here's what I can bring it all the way back around to come full circle on this controversial issue, is that I think we need rites of passage for times of transition, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For all times of transition, like people coming out of prison, people coming out of a tough job loss and looking for a new career, like that's me all over. People who are coming back from war, people who are transitioning out of college into the workforce.
Heck, even people becoming parents.
Yeah, and I think that this is a whole thing that I think that for one, I think that the church is missing the boat on, and I'll come back around to this in the religious rigidity. Rigidity. That's what I wrote. It's a funny word for some rigidity. That's what I was. Rigidity.
Yeah, I was like, I think you mean rigidity, but I'm just going to go along with it.
We'll come back around to that, but I think that that's something that the church is missing the boat on, because that's ultimately, I think those are our communities, our faith homes. That's where we need to have those transitions, those really rites of passage for people.
Yep.
Is to help them through that transition, is to help them to figure out their new place in society. But that's just my own humble opinion on that. So let's, do you have anything else to say on the being different?
No, just that I obviously this is not going to be groundbreaking, but you should. I feel like people need to embrace others' differences and embrace the differences in yourself. It's not a bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
9 times out of 10 is probably a good thing, because all it is going to do is help people see different perspectives and situations.
Yeah, and you don't have to tap dance at a zoo to get somebody's attention.
No. It will bring attention. That's, if you want to go to your zoo and tap dance to get attention, you may get kicked out. Yeah. We're not endorsing this, but it is something that will get attention.
Embrace what makes you you, and I think that ultimately was a message that Mumble needed, is embrace what makes you you. Yeah. And the dancing is what made him him. I jokingly said this yesterday. We were rewatching the movie. It's Frodo's quest to dance, because Elijah Wood voices Mumble. Yes. But anyway, sorry, my dad jokes, they're bad. Moving on to our next controversial issue is stewardship. This is stewardship of everything. I called it stewardship, and I know that some church people who listen to this, when I say stewardship, automatically their mind goes to money.
Yep, and they shut down, and they're like, oh, God, not again. Yeah. It's not that time of year, is it?
No, that's at the end of the year. Though many Episcopalians are having their annual meetings around this time of year, and I apologize for all of you who have to sit through those. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is stewardship of our earth. As I've talked about before in one of our other episodes, was that I believe that everything is a manifestation of God, that everything is a representation of God, and how we treat everything in our lives is ultimately how we treat God. And if we are not being good stewards of our earth, if we are not being good stewards of what we have been given, then ultimately we're failing. And this is where the warning for politics is coming up, is that we need the data, scientific data, to actually understand what we're doing, how we're being bad stewards. And especially in this movie, they showed about the overfishing, and I looked up fishing around Antarctica to get ready for this episode, and there is overfishing of the Antarctic krill.
Oh, yeah.
And, just seeing what they use it for and all this other stuff. And one of my biggest points in this is that human beings as a whole, we are contributing to climate change because we are so wasteful. Is that we overfish, we overfarm, we overdo all of these things because we think in some way it's going to help us to turn a profit. That for some reason that, if we overdo this, that, we're going to have enough supply to meet the demand.
Oh yeah, well, and you can kind of go into like consumerism too. Like us as consumers, generally, like we want more. Like we want to have things bigger and better. So,
but ultimately, looking at waste statistics, we are more wasteful than we are consumptive. Yes, that is a word. That we don't use everything that we buy. We throw away more than half of what we buy.
Oh yeah, just not to tune our own horns, but last year during Lent, we actually gave up plastic, mind you, like
buying plastic.
Yeah, buying plastic. God, it was hard. Like, everything has plastic in it. Like, we couldn't even, like, we were so dedicated. We didn't even buy boxes that had, like, the little plastic windows in it. Like, That's how dedicated we were. And it was hard. We hardly bought anything.
Yeah, we had to make sure that we had our shopping bags with us all the time.
Yep.
That's something that we as a society, we just need to do. We just need to remember where they are and to bring them with us when we go shopping.
Yes.
Unless you go to Costco, and Costco, they'll give you the cardboard boxes.
And then recycle those.
It's hard to find anything at Costco that does not use plastic.
Correct.
You have Loveless in this movie who has one of those 6-pack rings around his throat. And I don't know that, do they still have those things?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, I haven't seen any of those in a long time.
A lot of places are changing them up to where they're either biodegradable or...
I've seen the ones that go on the top of the cans.
Yeah, they go on top of the cans. But yeah, I usually see them with like the store brand Pops, like still have them.
Oh, okay.
But not too many. I don't think too many people buy in 6-packs anymore anyway, except for like beer.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why I've only seen the top ones, is because that's what the beer comes with, is the ones on the top.
Yeah.
But needless to say, I think that ultimately this is how we're treating God. We're taking too much for ourselves and not giving enough away. And this speaks to almost everything in this. And what's going on in our country right now with our Environmental Protection Agency and with our national parks and with anybody that works with the environment, is they're being silenced. And to me, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And to me, this feels very oppressive, because these are things that we need. We need to know these things because we need to know how we're impacting our environment.
Oh yeah.
We need to leave a better world for our children to be able to live and grow up in. And at the rate that we've been going, it's like we're going to kill the world in 20 years.
And I grew up in Montana, and so along with that, we have not only a lot of like state parks, and state run forests, but we also have a little bit of Yellowstone National Park and also Glacier National Park, which we share with Canada. And I think by the time that as a family, like, we finally go up to Glacier National Park, there's not going to be any glaciers. There's hardly any glaciers right now. I mean, the drastic change between when I was a child and now, it's just, it completely blows my mind. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, this might be coming, like, the hippie out in me, but, like, that's something that I really... Sorry, I'm going to cry. Like, I love nature so much.
You tree hugger.
I am a little bit. It's okay. Blame Captain Planet. But also as, like, a Girl Scout, too, like, we learned that we needed to take care of the forest, and we needed to take care of the earth. I know the Boy Scouts do that, too. And to me, you know, God gave us the earth as a gift and said, here, take care of it. Not like, here, do what you want, but here, take care of it. Like, these are the animals, take care of the animals. These are the trees and the land and the sea and the sky, take care of it.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't just, like, say, here, now, you know, make it, you know, trash it.
Yeah.
You know, no good parent wants you to trash the place that you live in. I mean, how many of you grew up and your parents just, like, didn't care about the state of your room? Most parents want you to pick up your room every once in a while.
Oh, and by the way, here's another plug for another thing that has no idea that we watch it or enjoy it. But Adam Ruins Everything on True TV, fantastic show. They actually cite their sources in their show. But check out his one on the environment. I guarantee you that it will terrify you as well. I mean, it's humor mixed in with reality, and that's fantastic. What I try to do with with my stuff.
And I just the people who like have so much faith in their church, but don't have faith in science, just kind of like blows my mind. Like, God gave us these brains for a reason, and here you are just, like, poo-pooing the research that we, like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
Well, hold on to that statement, because that's a good transition statement, but I just want to point out something that came to my mind, which is really nitpicky about the movie, and I apologize for this, but the really big nitpicky thing about this movie is that if you have a zoo that has a tap-dancing penguin that everyone wants to see, I can guarantee that zoo is not going to release that penguin back out into the wild. In fact, they're going to try to monopolize on it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
And start, advertising. We've got the tap dancing penguin. Come and see the tap dancing penguin for $10 or whatever. And
and we could also talk about, like, the difference between zoos and habitats. And,
yeah.
But we're not going to go into that. That's another sad thing. I mean, if you want to do research as to, like, good zoos to go to versus, the zoos that pretty much only want money and don't do anything in their power to help with conservation. I mean, look it up.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of zoos, but there are better zoos.
Well, this is another funny video that I saw on College Humor a few years ago, was how to be an environmentally or a responsible consumer. And what was funny was that every single thing that somebody suggested, somebody came up with a problem with it. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't do anything because everything hurts somebody or something. And it's hard to watch because it is very indicting of our entire culture. Mm-hmm. But anyway, coming back to the religious people, our next point on the religious
Rigidity. Don't worry, I'll say it for you.
Yeah, why am I not able to speak that word?
I don't know. Like, I'm the one that usually can't say things, and it's okay. I got your back this time.
Yeah. I mean, oh my goodness, this week we have. I can see happening right now a huge schism forming in so many denominations that this is going to be the next great schism. And by the way, most of your denominational work, almost every single denomination has had this great schism where they pulled off from their branch of whatever
Yep.
Christianity sect that they came from.
Well, yeah. I mean, it happened in the 60s and 70s. It
Yep.
happened in the 20s.
It happened at the American Revolution,
Yep,
which is
yep.
where us Episcopalians came from. We come from the Anglican branch, but we also, because of the American Revolution, we branched off and said,
We probably shouldn't call ourselves Anglican anymore.
Yeah.
Anglican in England, it's a little too close.
So, yeah, that's kind of where we came from, and I mean, so many Christians right now are tearing each other apart because of these weird little slights. And I think the biggest thing right now that people are all about is the anti-abortion people, claiming pro-life things and stuff like this. And by the way, I use the term anti-abortion because here's my next big controversial issue. Warning is that you are not. I know. You are not pro-life if you do not support a child after they are born. If you do not help a parent after a child is born, if you are not against the death penalty, if you're not out to help refugees, if you are not out to help, people in all of their forms, if you are not out there to love everybody, you're doing it wrong.
And to help everybody.
You cannot claim pro-life. And I know people are going to jump all over me.
I know,
because
it's like, and
slipped
the
up.
trolls are rolling in.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can say or do. We still love you. And we
still
will
love you.
still think the way that we think.
I'm trying so hard not to be so political in my statements and with what I say. Just momentary pause because we're going to have to go get our guest presenter.
Peter's awake, so give us just a moment.
And we're back with our guest presenter here, our son. Anyway, as I was saying that, the religious rigidity.
Yes, rigidity.
Okay.
Rigidity.
In this movie was a problem, and I think that. Well, and I watched a wonderful video by Wisecrack, and we've talked about them before. On this one was on Rick and Morty, and I really love Rick and Morty. There's one episode which is one of my favorites. It's called Get Swifty.
I had no idea you watch Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it's a good show.
I learn something new about you every day, Miguel.
Anyway, in there they talk about religions and false arguments, and what he talks about in that is that people like to say that religious people just don't use their brains, or they don't really think about things. But in it, he says, no, they do it because that's the way that they rationalize things that they really have no idea about, that they really can't understand fully because it's never happened before. And I think that's very much evident within this movie, that you have Mumble who talks with the birds that were trying to eat him at the very beginning, and they talk about the alien abduction kind of thing, about these humans and stuff like that they're aliens. And so he had sort of this framework for reasoning why something is happening, that some other force outside of the penguin colony, or outside of the birds, is acting upon the fish. Mm-hmm. So therefore the fish must not be there. And so it's not so much that they're stupid, or that they're not able to think about these things. It's that they are just they're rigid in their reasoning of how things are happening.
Yeah.
And
well, because they don't know better. They don't. Their experiences don't lead them to know that the possibility could be something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unlike now, we know what scientists have been discovering.
Oh yeah.
It's and you can still have faith, but still understand that science is a real thing, and like what
Yeah.
they discover are real things. Like, I don't get the whole like science not being real, or like the scientists are like not finding real science. I don't understand that whole concept. But anyway,
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that faith has always been a big part of science. That not every scientist is an atheist, and not every atheist is fully believes in science. And I mean, this is one of those things that it doesn't equate. Is that you have people of faith who have been wonderful scientists. I mean, in fact, you wouldn't have the majority of the math science portion without Muslim people, because some Muslims created algebra.
yeah,
And they created the Arabic alphabet and not alphabet, the number system. Is that those are the characters that we use for the numbers? I think it's called Arabic, and so I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up.
don't quote us on that.
Don't quote us on that. Yeah, but I think that this is why I called it religious rigidity. Is that they are standing firm on something that their reasoning is flawed, and we go through this so much throughout our entire society, throughout civilization as a whole, is that we have always been rigid on our thinking, on our reasoning on things, and it's been so weird the way we do some things. Is that even though the ancient Greeks and Egyptians figured out that the Earth was round, we decided to start thinking that the Earth was flat, and decided to stay rigid on that for some reason. And then you had this whole idea that the Earth revolves around the sun rather than the other way around, and we stood rigid on some of those things. And so oftentimes when you look back on history, you kind of think, why did people think that way? But then again, you also look at our own society and think, why do we think that way about some of the things that we are so rigid about too?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm kind of feeling that we need to go back and edit some of. So if we have a weird edit before this, just to let you know that we had to go back and fix some things. We did have a minor hiccup on something.
Yeah.
So anyway, last point here is standing up for what is right. I mean, that is.
I think we've been talking about that too, like this.
Yeah,
whole
we have been
entire time.
talking about that the entire time, but and there would be some people who would argue that Mumble's being rigid in that this is just who he is, and I think that
I don't think so, because he does try. He tries to sing.
Yeah, he tries to sing, and that's what my point was going to be, was that he tries to sing. He tries to do these other things, that he's not so rigid in that. He tries to suppress it at one point, and we talked a little bit about this before with Stranger Things, was the suppression of a part of oneself that kind of becomes explosive at a point. And I think that here it's saying that no, it's that part of you that you absolutely know it's right. Like, it's right to treat all people with kindness and respect and love. That you just know it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I've ever met somebody who doesn't think that that's the right thing to do. That's a good thing to do. I mean,
I've met people who know that that's the way it is, but then for some reason in their mind they're like, that's not how the world works, and I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Like, you're part of the reason why that the world isn't working that way, is because you yourself aren't being open and kind to other people.
Yeah, and you also saw this with a little montage at the end there, with Mumble, after Mumble has done his thing, that with the humans, when they're standing up, when they're protesting and they're trying to save the penguins, and all this other stuff that, these people fighting back and forth, and finally, ultimately, they come back to the ban of fishing around Antarctica. And I think that's very evident in what's going on in our world right now, is that people are standing up for what they believe to be is right, like helping refugees, like helping, like all this other stuff. And I think that it ultimately really is standing up for what is right, and it is good. So we only have a few minutes left, even though we are going to edit some. Is there any conclusions that we want to make on this?
Happy Feet is very complex, and it jumps around a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it has good points to take to heart.
Stand up for what is right is what my conclusion is going to be in that. So, as we said at the very beginning, if you have anything to add to this conversation, or if you have any requests for us in the future, talk to us. Get to us at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com, at Real Honest Faith on Twitter and on Facebook. And
and at the website too.
Yes, thehonestfaith.com. And as always, come and join the conversation.